When you think of a sports team, you usually think of one city, right? One home base. But the Los Angeles Rams, their story is, well, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a story about a journey, a nomadic quest for glory that spanned three different hometowns. So today, we're going to break down the incredible history of this one-of-a-kind franchise. So what's the big deal? Well, get this. They are the only team in the entire history of the NFL to win a championship for three different cities. And that's not just some trivia stat, you guys. It's a whole saga of ambition, controversy, and constant change. Okay, so this timeline right here really lays out their wild ride. They start in Cleveland in '36, then make the big move to Los Angeles. After a long run there, boom, they're off to St. Louis in '95. And then, you guessed it, right back to Los Angeles in 2016. Every single one of these moves has a story behind it, so let's get into it. All right, first stop, Ohio. And this is where the Rams pretty much established their whole MO for the next 80-plus years. Win big, and then pack your bags. So the team gets its start as the Cleveland Rams back in 1936, and they got good fast. In 1945, they win the NFL championship. But then, in a move that absolutely nobody saw coming, just a few weeks after hoisting that trophy, the owner, Dan Reeves, says, "We're out of here." The team was heading west. And look, this wasn't just some team changing its address. This was a huge deal. It literally made the NFL the first professional coast-to-coast sports league in the country. But their new LA home came with a pretty massive condition attached. See, for more than a decade, there was this unspoken but very real gentleman's agreement in the NFL that kept black players out of the league. But when the Rams wanted to lease the LA Coliseum, the folks in charge basically said, "Not so fast. You want to play here? You have to integrate your team. No discussion." And the Rams didn't just say, okay. They went out and made actual history. They signed two former UCLA stars, Kenny Washington and Woody Strode. And with those signings, they completely shattered the NFL's color barrier. And get this was a full year before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball. This was a monumental moment. So once they landed in LA, the Rams just exploded. They were an absolute sensation. Their style of play was exciting, plus they were the first team to have all their games televised. So yeah, they became Hollywood's team pretty fast, and they capped it off by winning a championship for LA in 1951. All right, so as we roll into the 60s, the team's personality kind of does a 180. The high-flying offense, that gave way to this brutal, bone-crushing defense that became known as the Fearsome Foursome. Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen, Rosie Greer, and Lamar Lundy. These guys weren't just a defensive line. They were icons. But nothing lasts forever, especially not in Hollywood. With some money troubles and an old stadium, the Rams were packing their bags again. This time, they were headed to the Midwest for a totally different chapter in their story. So the first step out of LA proper wasn't actually that far. In 1980, they just hopped down the freeway to Anaheim. See, the problem was the LA Coliseum was massive, and they could rarely sell it out. And back then, if you didn't sell out, the game was blacked out on local TV. So a smaller, modern stadium in Orange County seemed like the smart business move. Now, their time in Anaheim gave us one of the absolute greatest to ever play the game, Eric Dickerson. And in '84, man, he did something that still seems impossible. He rushed for 2,105 yards. That record still stands today. Just incredible. But hey, even a legend like Dickerson couldn't fix everything. By the mid-90s, the team was kind of fading. Attendance was way down, the stadium was getting old, and the owners wanted a new one. They found a city willing to build it for them, St. Louis. And just like that, the California chapter was closed and the Rams were headed to the Midwest. So the first few years in St. Louis, yeah, they were pretty rough. And then, right before the 1999 season, disaster. Their new star quarterback gets a season-ending injury. So in this moment that felt like total desperation, Coach Dick Vermeil turns to his complete unknown, a guy who was literally stocking shelves at a grocery store a few years earlier, Kurt Warner. And he says this: "What happened next? Only one of the most shocking, high-flying offenses the NFL has ever seen. With Kurt Warner at quarterback and Marshall Faulk at running back, they were nicknamed the greatest show on turf, and man, did they live up to it. They just blew past defenses, shattered records, and took the entire league by storm. And this right here really shows you the two sides of the Rams coin, doesn't it? In LA, it was all about that gritty, terrifying defense of the Fearsome Foursome. But in St. Louis, it was the complete opposite, all about the offensive fireworks of the greatest show on turf. Two totally legendary teams, two totally different ways of winning. And that unbelievable offense, it took them all the way. It was a total Cinderella story. They win Super Bowl XXI, bringing a championship to their new home in St. Louis. But I think you know where this is going. History has a funny way of repeating itself. The wins started to dry up, and yep, another fight over who was going to pay for a new stadium. And that kicked off what was probably their most controversial move of all, heading back to LA. So after this really ugly public fight with the city of St. Louis over a new stadium, the owner, Stan Kroenke, basically said, "That's it, we're going back to LA." In 2016, the other NFL owners voted to approve it, and after 22 years away, the Rams were home. And where did they play? Right back where they started in LA, the Coliseum. Now, their first year back in LA was not great, but then they made a move in 2017 that changed absolutely everything. They hired this 30-year-old kid named Sean McVay, making him the youngest head coach in modern NFL history, and he just completely revitalized the entire organization. With McVay at the helm, the Rams weren't just good, they were a powerhouse year after year. And then, in 2021, the whole journey, all the moves, it all came full circle. They won the Super Bowl at home in their spectacular new SoFi Stadium. Talk about a Hollywood ending, right? So that makes four total championships in the team's long, winding history. And each one tells a part of this crazy story that stretches across 3 different cities and multiple generations of players. And this chart just lays it all out so perfectly. You've got Cleveland in 45, LA in 51, St. Louis in 99, and then LA again in 2021. It's a championship resume that no other team in the league can claim. When you really look at it, the Rams' story has always been about one thing: chasing a championship, no matter where they had to go to do it. But now, with a shiny new ring and this incredible stadium in Los Angeles, you have to wonder, have these wanderers finally found their forever home? Or is there another chapter still waiting to be written?